Hi, Alysha Randall here at Fast Growth Consulting. I often get asked from founders how much a new hire is actually going to cost because there are a lot more costs than just salary. So I have a calculator that you can use, and this is an introduction of how you can use that calculator. So let me just share my screen. I'm just going to make this a bit bigger so you can see it, hopefully. So this is a calculator that you can download. Just make a copy of it so you're not affecting the original. But this is a calculator that can help you decide how much a person is going to cost into your company. Now, there are a lot of assumptions that I've had to make. I've put in averages and what I see most commonly in the startup world in the UK. It's probably worth caveating that. So what you can do is if you can review the assumptions that I've made, and if there are changes to these, you just alter it here in the blue, essentially. Okay, so let's assume we're going to hire a salesperson that is on around a 50,000 base, and if they reach target, so when you're looking at budget, you always assume they're going to hit target, because if they go over target and get a higher base, you're going to get more revenue, so they offset each other. So let's say they're going to be on a 50,000 base, and if they hit target, they're going to get, say, a 50,000 bonus. So what this looks at then is it's saying, okay, so we've got about 100,000 in salary. Now, in the UK, that you need to add on top of that the national insurance, the employer's national insurance. And this is what you have to pay HMRC over and above the salary each month. So at the moment, it's 15%. That could change. Then there's pension contributions. I've put in 3% because that is the statutory requirement, but of course you can go higher than that if you want. Then we have a training budget. So most UK startups that I work with, depending on their policies, they're between 500 and 2,000 pounds per head per annum. So I've just put in 500 for now. Health insurance is another benefit that a lot of employers consider. I usually find health insurance is an option after a Series A when the startup has a bit more cash basically to spend on their employees and retention. So I have put it 0 here for now, but this is something you may want to consider. And then there's other benefits. Maybe you do Friday lunches, a cycle scheme, whatever it is. It's just a rough estimate of what other benefits there are. Then we have the things that don't happen every single year. So the first one is a CapEx, so a new kit. So this is thinking about when you have a new employee, what do you need to buy for them? Generally, it's just a laptop plus accessories, but sometimes you may want to consider furniture or whatever else you need to buy them. Maybe you buy them a hoodie, or a water bottle. There may be things that you buy for new employees. So this needs to be added. Recruitment costs. So obviously, the smaller you are, the more you're going to try and tap into your network. It may be just a small amount because you're using Indeed or you're using LinkedIn, whatever it is. If you're using a recruitment agent, 20% is the standard. So I've put 20% in there for now, and that's often on salary and bonus, which is why it looks so incredibly high. But if there's any other method, then you just change that. And then finally, I've put in annual increase. Now, often when we're budgeting for our clients, we put in around a 3 to 5% pots across the board for annual increases. And this covers both the annual review that employees go through, but this pot also covers off promotions as well. So we generally put in a pot for employees that founders and managers can use however they want. But it's worthwhile saying that for year 2, this is a potential cost. Year 1, it's obviously not included in year 1, but it is included in year 2. Then there's all the other little bits and pieces that may or may not be material depending. So the first one is tech subscriptions. So generally, every time you have a new employee, you've got to get them a Google, a CRM, WMS if you have one, Slack, Zero if they're in finance, Notion. There's all these different tech subscriptions that a new person may need to have. 150 might be a bit on the light side. So it might be worthwhile understanding what that is. Your head of tech systems or your CTO should know the answer to that. Parties and entertainment, again, it's only small, but it does all add up. So the most common one is £150 for Christmas and £100 for summer. Obviously, as an accountant, I'm going to say 150 across the board because that is your maximum you're allowed without start annoying HMRC and having to pay additional tax, whether that's your employee or yourself. But I've just put that in as a starting point. The next two are travel and entertainment. So this is entertainment as in client entertainment. So with travel, I generally find if you have sales teams, you may have sales teams that have to travel all over the country, and therefore you may be looking at £1,000 a month even. Or they may be a leadership team that's having to travel international every quarter. So again, that might be material. Or you're just paying for them to travel around London and you pay for their TFL ticket, and therefore it might just be $20 a month, or they never leave. So it might be zero. So I've put zero for now, but you may want to consider travel. This can be costly again if they're traveling all over the UK or international. Client entertainment and subsistence is the same. Subsistence is basically the other things with travel. It's food and drink in general. So with client entertainment, you may have, say, an enterprise sales manager who has to spend quite a bit on client entertainment. So again, over a year, this could become relatively material, but for most employees, it may not. And then finally, this is just something worth thinking about. You may not want to add this as a cost, so I have put it down as being optional. But again, it's something to think about is when you bring someone on board, they have to be trained, and that takes time, particularly if they're in a growth team. So if you have a new salesperson coming in, your sales head or someone in sales has to train that salesperson, and therefore you are paying for them to train somebody rather than paying for new clients. So it's just a way of thinking about, or it's a line item of thinking about how much this could potentially cost for the business. And so if you want to, you can include this. So this is just saying, okay, I've got someone who's going to have to spend about 5 days working on onboarding this person. That really is costing the business £2,500. So if we have a look at this, somebody that's on a 50,000 base with an annual bonus of 50,000, the first year, particularly if you're using a recruitment agent, is going to cost you £144,000. And then in the second year, including the increase in the annual increase pot, is going to cost you 124,000. So that shows your monthly amount as well. This is gross, obviously. Now, what I like to put in, particularly when I'm looking at clients, is a full-time CFO. And I want to demonstrate this of how expensive a full-time CFO can cost you, particularly if you're using a recruitment agent, but let's put that for zero for now. You can see how expensive a full-time CFO is as well. So if you are looking for a CFO resource, a fractional CFO doesn't look like a bad option. So I'm just sneaking that in at the end. But anyway, feel free to use this calculator to help you with understanding how much a full-time person actually costs to your business. And it just helps you with managing your limited resources, which is generally cash and time. So hopefully this will help you make the right decision. So yeah, thanks for watching. Cheers.